And we're here with one of my actual friends here in the Portland area, an actual monster, probably the next young prodigy of this game. You've seen Jude top eighting, top tenning, top eighting again. I don't know what, 8 or 9 times now, Jude.
Yeah,
List
I
off
think
the
the last
events.
yeah. So calling Portland last November, Battle Hardened Portland, Chicago, although that was on chain, not Zen, and then the last 7 RTNs in ProQuest I played on Zen. I top aided.
Yeah. And you were like at Pro Tour London, 13th place in the calling.
11th in the
11th.
call. Yeah.
11. So you've just been on a tear, right? I think the consistency here speaks way higher than your average. Like, you can hit one top eight every once in a while. You can win a calling every once in a while, but pretty much every event you have participated in recently, you have been in the top cut, you have been in the money, you have been there, and you've been conquering it recently. It's pretty nuts. Uh, how long have you been playing Flesh and Blood?
Yeah, so I started playing a little bit over 2 years ago at this point. I started a little bit before Outsiders came out.
Yeah.
I was a Dromai player originally. I played Dromai basically from when she came out to when she LL'd. And then from then until about November, I kind of just swapped around, played different heroes. I played like Dio at Amsterdam. I
Yeah.
played some Rhinar. I played some KO, a lot of different heroes. And then after I played Enigma for ProQuest season qualifying for London. And then going into the Calling Portland, I was trying to think about what deck I wanted to play. And
Yeah.
I was looking at like the worlds list, and even though there were no Zens in the top 8 of that of worlds last year, there was Zendel in the calling, and there was I think 2 or 3 Zens in the top 16 and 32.
Yep.
And I felt like the way that the deck functions now, especially like after the Art of War ban, after the books banning, after stuff like Bonds of Ancestry, Zen is basically able to play like a very fair game, but
Yep.
also do a lot of unfair things, like in the way that Ninja, like in how Ninja's strengths are. Zen's able to utilize that as well as being able to have like better blocks than some other ninjas.
Yeah, Zen is like the do it all kind of very safe, very methodical hero, right? And I've actually watched you play him a lot recently, right? Like I think I brought Fatigue Riptide into you at one of the events, and you just like you always have an answer. You were prepared for almost every weird situation, and I feel like Zen is just like one of the most flexible decks right now, just consistent.
Yeah, 100%. I think the only exception to that is really Kano, because of how
Mm,
mid range the deck is. You basically, no matter how you build the deck, you can run Arcane Barrier 3, but you still are very dependent on like drawing Transcend early, and you kind of have to have the Kano break once or twice in order to win. But other than
yeah,
that, you have Cosmic Awakening for fatigue. You have all the Ninja Go Again attacks for
yeah,
proactive matchups. You have Ninja Defense Reactions, Flick Flack, one of the best defense reactions in the game.
yep.
Also access to like wax on, wax off, that package. And so the deck is you're kind of able to mold your sideboard to fit any given meta or any given matchup that you want to target.
Yeah, I remember when you first started playing the game. I think we were at the game store. You were on Dromai, and you didn't even have like all of the equipment. You know what I mean? Like you kind of had like the cost affordable version of Dromai at the time, and it was one of the first times I'd played against you, and I was like, okay, I gotta kind of teach this newer player how to play. And as I was like kind of like being gentle on you, you started like crushing me. And I was like, okay, never mind. Can't be nice to this guy. Gotta crush him.
And
uh,
you're on Bravos, like the first time I ever played against a Guardian. I have like 2 passing mirages in my deck because the
yeah,
third one's still in the mail. Uh,
yeah, yeah. I was like, I remember we were talking in the game store, and that was back when I was like on a tear in the Portland area. I was like, dude,
yeah,
this
that was
kid's,
like right after PQ, like
yeah,
Baltimore season, etc. Yeah.
yeah. I was like, this kid's gonna be the next like problem in our area. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna be the top of the ProQuest list soon. And I mean, 2 years later, you have pretty much you're the boogeyman in the Portland and Seattle area now. Every event, everybody's gonna tech for whatever deck you're on. If you show up with Kano, I want to cry. It's just it's just the worst. Um,
You say that, but I'm actually considering bringing that to my PC
I mean, as
this
soon as I
weekend.
saw Kano was pretty good and Zen's gonna LL, I was like, oh, all right, Jude's gonna be hopping on this train soon. Um, so what was it really like that brought you into the competitive side of Flesh and Blood? And have you played any other card games before? Like, how'd you get here?
Yeah, so I played Magic. I started playing Magic when I was 6, and kind of as I played more Magic, I like naturally was drawn to the more like competitive side of it. I definitely, as 11, 12, 13, 14-year old, I wasn't like super great at competitive Magic, but I played in some RCQs, which is like the RTN like equivalent for Magic.
Yeah.
Top eight, never won anything like that, but you know, tried to compete. And then when I started playing Fab, I go to my first RTN. I'm playing Dromai, and I hit very good matchups for sure. I hit I think it was like 5 or 6 Rangers in 9 rounds, but I ended up winning my first RTN playing Dromai. And so from there, I was like, okay, I understand this game. I feel like I can definitely compete. And so like from there, it was just it all kind of went from there.
Yeah. How do you pick your heroes too? Because you played quite a few heroes. Originally, you were like an illusionist guy, but
Mhm.
like, what is it about the heroes you play that like calls you to him?
Yeah, so in general, I think there's like one of two main things. It's either I want to have a deck where it's really one of three things. It's like I either want to play a deck where I can leverage my opponent's maybe inexperience in the matchup, like my opponent is able to make mistakes. Like for example, like Assassin or Illusionist is definitely true in that way, where it's like if your opponent hasn't played against Illusionist, or if they just make one mistake over the course of the game, that can compound quite a bit.
Yeah.
Or another thing is like I want a game where I have a lot of agency. Like if I can go into a tournament and I lose 2 games and I own top eight, if I know why I lost those 2 games, I feel fine with that tournament because I know like where I can improve or where I can play better. What I don't love is if I play a deck and it's like, oh, I lost these 2 games. I felt like I played as well as I could, but I got unlucky, or like I just didn't draw the hands and the sequences that I need. And
Yeah.
so most of the heroes that I played, I've definitely felt like my losses are because I misplayed, or my losses are because my opponent played well, not necessarily because
Yeah.
both of us played well and I just drew poorly.
Yeah. Makes sense. And what is like the hero you're thinking about playing next? You kind of mentioned Kano, but Zen's probably gone now, right? Like
Yeah,
after
100.
this.
I think very likely this weekend, and then even if he's not gone this weekend by some miracle, he's definitely gone next weekend.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's tough, right? Because I think a lot of the other powerful heroes right now are definitely they're in that 6, 7, 800 point range, and so depending on what happens this ProQuest season, we could definitely see like even if we're saying Zen and Enigma are definitely gone, we could see 2, 3, or 4 more heroes LL over the course of the
Yeah.
next month or two leading into Nats.
Yep.
I would say definitely some front runners for me are Kano, New. I'm not a big Florian fan. I could be convinced to play the deck. It definitely seems like the kind of thing that I could enjoy, where it's definitely that more like mid-range controlling style, which I
Yeah.
like. But it definitely does feel like you can just draw the wrong half of your deck sometimes, where it's like you draw all your fellings before your root bounds or whatever, and you have to
Yeah.
play below rate, and you're just like not quite able to get there because you're too far behind by the time you get online or anything like that.
Yeah. I think I like I've been looking at Florian a little bit because it's kind of like Reinhardt. I mean, I really like one combo decks. I don't know why. Like it's Reinhardt was just always for me block until you blood rush.
Yeah.
And Clay was actually the one who was like, it's just block until you blood rush with like 2 more steps. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that sounds cool. I just don't think I want to run into a world with like I feel like he's going to be the next boogeyman. So there's going to be mirrors on mirrors on mirrors.
Yeah,
You
it's
know what I
tough.
mean?
Like that's kind of the same thing with Aurora, right? Like Aurora
Yeah.
going to London. Even if I wasn't playing like Zen, and I felt pretty comfortable at like playing Zen into Aurora, and then also like playing Zen to like a lot of other decks, you're gonna have everyone in the room bringing a
Yeah.
deck that is ready to beat you. And in addition, you're also gonna have to play a bunch of mirrors, which definitely there are some mirrors that are better than others, but
Yep.
especially like stuff like Florian and Aurora, where it's like you're you're kind of just trying to do the thing, whether that's play Arc Lightning or like get to 8 Earth cards in your banner stone. And a lot of the time, it's like who draws the better half of their deck or draws
Yeah.
the cards in their deck in the right order.
Yeah. Yeah. Mirrors have always kind of been tough in flesh and blood. You know what I mean?
Mhm. The
Yeah.
Drumline mirror is the only mirror I've ever enjoyed.
Actually, yeah, I think the drum mirror is pretty sweet. I kind of like the prism mirror too, the old prism mirror, because it
Yeah.
was just kind of like this meta mind game. But then like you can see a lot of the modern illusionists, the mirror, it's
Yeah,
like
like Enigma Mirror, the Prism Mirror is
yeah,
so cursed. I know
yeah,
Justin Salmon, he lost his win and calling. He just plays the Prism Mirror and loses the die roll, and his opponent goes Herald Herald, and he has 3 no blocks in his hand. He just loses on
yeah.
the spot.
I mean, we saw it with the Enigma mirrors too, right? It was like,
Yeah.
oops, I win the game.
Oh, yep.
Oops. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I even like not even at the Pro Tour, but just like in Enigma match like mirrors that I played before. It's like they're so swingy where it's like you you play mirror guy and your opponent doesn't have like their own mirror guy or 10k or like waxing or like big attack action in hand, and it's just like the game is over. It doesn't
yeah,
even matter that like, oh, I've held onto my traverse when you've like burned yours. If you don't draw a hand that is able to deal with like the board that
yeah,
your opponent presents, a lot of the time it snowballs pretty quickly, like compared to
yeah.
like other fat mirrors.
It definitely felt like the Droma mirror was like there was a lot more control and nuance to it. Like,
Yeah, I think there were a lot more comeback mechanics
yeah,
where
yeah,
it's like you're able to between like Rake the Embers, Asvalai, and
yep,
Uvia. A
yeah,
lot of the time, if you get behind, you're able to pull back.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's almost like whoever played Rake first typically lost, in my opinion. You know, it's like
yeah,
it was interesting. Like you could kind of intentionally like stall. Um, yeah, it wasn't like vomit the best card on the table as soon as you have it, right? Okay, so what are your future goals? I mean, like you've been top eighting like crazy. You've been hitting the top of pretty much every tournament that I've seen you in. What is like the when are you gonna feel satiated? What are
yeah.
you looking for?
Well, I think the biggest thing right now is like once in LLs, I want to feel like I'm still able to perform
Mhm.
at a good level because up until about 6 months ago at Calling Portland, I hadn't really, I had won some pro quests and I had, top 32 to calling or two, but I hadn't really like broken that top cut. And so
Mhm.
like a lot of the good results that I've had have been over the course of these like last 6 months playing Zen. And
Yeah.
so I think the biggest thing is I want to like continue performing at a good level. And I think my next goal is I want to cash a Pro Tour or a Worlds. I got my Singapore invite today. I don't know
Nice.
whether I'm going to Singapore or not, but I'm definitely planning on going to Philly this year and U.S.
Mhm.
Nationals.
Yeah.
So you know, I've always done like I've done pretty well at like the calling battle hardened PQ RTN level, but I've
Yeah.
definitely struggled at like the more like Nats Pro Tour
Yeah.
Worlds, Tier 4, etc.
Do you feel good in drafting or is CC still your primary format?
I actually for hunted I did a whole bunch of draft practice. I think I did 60 or 65 or 70 drafts, and I was feeling really good into a draft at London. What actually killed me was my CC record.
Oof.
Um, I got an IP2 round one, and then I from like just dumb mistake. I had a Crushing Tiger shuffled that I accidentally shuffled into my deck, and then I like hit Flooring, which was like not a match I was expecting to see 3 times in day one of the
Yeah.
Pro Tour, and like I felt like that matchup was good, and I just hadn't played it against like very competent players before,
Mhm, mhm.
and I just like hit some bad variants, didn't draw the Transcend quite. Like I think the only matchups where I feel uncomfortable with in Zen is the matchups where blocking until you draw Transcend doesn't function well. And like those matchups are primarily like Enigma and Florian, where it's like
Mhm.
they will punish you incredibly hard if you are drawing the wrong half of your deck. Whereas like
Yeah.
normally into, Assassin, Rune Blade, even potentially like some mirrors like into Cinder, for example, you can pretty comfortably block and you'll fall behind because, cards that attack in Flesh and Blood just do more damage than cards that defend. But
Yeah.
you're able to a lot of the time like defend heavily, stabilize, draw your transcend, and then like push back using your like very powerful armor, etc.
Mm, mm. What do you what do you think of the future state of competitive Flesh and Blood? So like we know Enigma's gone. We
Mm.
know Zed's probably gone. Aurora is very quickly going to follow just because the how many people play her and her performance, right? Like we see an
Yeah,
average
I
like
think she only needs to win like 20-25% of ProQuest in order to LL.
yeah. And I feel like she's pretty much going to be given that considering she's like everybody's mainstay hero right now and has an
Mm.
incredibly high win rate. So with those three heroes gone, we're really looking at like a very different world. I mean, like there's also a possibility Dash is gone, which is kind of crazy, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't
uh,
know how much that'll affect the meta, but
I
yeah, for
don't know.
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. So what do you think the future of Flesh and Blood's going to look like? Uh,
Yeah.
or-
So I think it definitely high seas is going to have a big impact on that. Like
yeah.
whether how powerful the new high seas heroes are is definitely from what I've seen so far. It looks like Marlin and Puffin are going to be pretty strong. I think Gravy is like
Yes.
harder to say because we don't have any previous knowledge about like necromancer as a class. I think he's
Yeah.
either going to be quite bad or he's going to be just like absolutely broken.
Yeah.
Where it's like that's
Illusionist.
kind of how the new classes are. Like if you look at like what we've had before in terms of like we've had illusionist, we've had assassin. Illusionist has been broken. Assassin's been. I mean, assassin honestly has been kind of broken now, but
Yeah.
that's because it got 6 sets straight of support in a row. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I don't. It seems like difficult to say that there will be like 6 sets of like a pirate necromancer support in the next like 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other classes who just started, I mean, like, look at Assassin when it first came out. It was horrible, right? Arachne
Yeah,
was pretty
absolutely
much
unplayable.
F tier. Yeah. So I think Gravy, unless he pulls like an Enigma, style illusionist entrance, I feel like he's probably going to be mid for a long time until he gets like 2, 3 sets of support
Mhm.
and has enough playable cards. Marlin does look pretty good.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, we still don't know like how much go in she's gonna have, but if she's a hero that has a good amount of go in, which it does seem like they're kind of pushing her in a little bit of a different direction, but if
yeah.
she does have a lot of go again, like she could potentially be something near to like Lexi 2.0 with you
Yeah.
just get all of the very powerful like 2 for 1 3 for 1s that Ranger
Yep.
has. And you also have access to like you can be a new Horizons Ranger, which like you kind of can do with Riptide, but it's not you're not
Yes.
maximizing in the same way that
It's
Lexi did.
hard. Yeah. Yeah, she looks like the scary one. I think Puffin's going to be really interesting. The card types that they're showing for Puffin are kind of like weird, like 4 for 7s, a lot of like off-branded style, kind of like no boost, right? That's another big thing that we've been seeing
Yeah.
on Puffin's cards. So it's going to be interesting if she can generate the action points to like function well. But I mean, she does have the bird.
Yeah, I'm afraid of any hero that's a draw card on their text box. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Victor isn't the best, but also Victor's like a guardian.
yeah,
Like I think, and like any hero that can potentially be 5 intellect, like Fang also, like we didn't think Fang was going to be particularly good, and like I wouldn't say he's like insanely good or anything, but I actually think he definitely has a part to play in this new meta, where it's
yeah,
like as the games get slower, Fang definitely benefits. Like Fang's worst matchups were the more aggressive matchups, and he like I think Fang like absolutely steamrolls Florian because Florian's like, I'm gonna block out and set up all this stuff, and you're just gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna send 14 damage at you every turn for like 10 turns in a row.
yeah,
And because my deck's like 60 reds or like it's like 50, 45, 50 reds, you're just like never gonna get fatigued.
yeah. How yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, Fang's kind of an interesting one too. Yeah, I feel like it's gonna be. I hope the meta slows down a little bit. That's my hope, right?
I think that definitely seems likely
It's,
where it's like
it feels like it.
yeah, between like Florian and New being both pretty strong decks.
Yeah, it just totally depends on what the new heroes do. Like if Marlin is absolutely cracked on the aggro side, then we'll
Mhm.
have another aggro hero that we have to pyramid out. Uh, but yeah, if it slows down enough, that'll be pretty sweet. I mean, Prism still exists, so
Mhm.
I don't know if like Jarl or any of those like fatigue style guardians are going to be coming back or not. But
True. I do think though that like between Victor and Jarl and Florian, they have more tools to beat new because the way that New Prism has been built is it's like very much like a Herald aggro deck, and so if a
yep,
lot of the aggro decks leave the format, they have to pivot more towards auras.
yep,
But Florian, Jarl, and Victor, I mean Victor a little bit less so, but they all have ways to like kind of break the just like the aura package loop plan, especially because Prism doesn't have Tome anymore, where it's
yep,
like URL can like if you just see a left prism, they can't it breaks the loop
yep.
because they just don't have the resources to do all the things.
Mhm.
And then like Florian can send rune chance, so you can like threaten the angels while clearing ALS. And then like Victor, I've seen some Victors running time skippers for the prism matchup, which
Yeah,
isn't inherently like a guardian thing, but Victor is also like fundamentally pretty good into prism because you're often able to like aggro them down faster than like Jarl or Florian can.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and so I
yeah,
think Prism, I don't actually know how much better Prism gets because like you lose a bad matchup in Enigma, but like new deck, like because the other thing is like decks can run more defense reactions now because Enigma's out of the format, and so the more defense reactions you have, the worse your Herald, like Prism's Herald plan gets because like you can just cover more like Heralds for 7, etc.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like actually blocking Prism does hurt her a lot. Like right, like just
Yeah, if
stuffing
she's on the
the
Rapture plan, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Just it actually stuffs her entire game plan. Cool. I mean, I would love to jump to the deck tech, but I would also love to pick your brain a little bit. Would you want to talk about like a tier list, maybe, like from your perspective?
Yeah, sure, I'd be down to do that.
All right. So we got it in front of us here. We're gonna assume that in the next couple weeks here, we've got Aurora, Enigma, and Zen going out. So, what is your perspective on the rest of the meta? I mean, Arachne's probably dog tier, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Hunted. If anything, Hunted actually made Azuri a bit better, but I
yeah.
don't think that Arachne got
I
too
mean,
much.
there's like 5 forms of Arachne now, so Arachne
Mhm.
fans are not really missing out. What do you think about Verdance? I think she's
Yeah,
like a
I think she's
A.
like I think she's like mid A, maybe high B. I think she punishes Florian really well, where it's like
Yes.
Florian is trying to be really slow, and you just like set up this unstoppable combo that they don't really have any way to interact with. The other thing
Yep.
that Verdance has against Florian is like if they're trying to rune chance stack you, you can just like scour them 3 times, and just like
Yep.
they have no rune chance anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I think she definitely like she struggled into Aurora, she struggled into Zen, she struggled into Enigma, and so if all 3 of those bad matchups are gone, like you
Yep.
definitely. The other thing is like your Kano matchup is not that bad either.
Yep.
Your I think you definitely your new matchup is not great. They're just able to like disrupt you pretty
Yeah.
heavily, and then um, yeah. But I think other than that, like her, other than the fact that she definitely still feels like she's like missing a card or two,
Yeah.
she was fundamentally very like pretty powerful into the other top decks right now.
I do feel like she can also be like a mildly clunky. I mean, we saw Majin play on stream actually over the Pro Tour weekend, and like he just couldn't find the combo. It just did like it didn't
Yeah,
show
like
up.
you just draw some sequences of hands that are pretty
Yeah.
inefficient.
Yeah.
Like the deck definitely I think plays better than it looks, but
Yes.
compare like the cards that you're playing, like you're running like Yellow Autumn Studge. Some lists I've seen playing like Yellow Fruits of the Forest. You're
Yep.
definitely you have like
Stretching.
40 really good cards, and then you have 20 cards that you have to
yeah.
play.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. I think Florian, what do you think? S tier or A tier?
I think Florian's S. Like again, it's like we kind of have to see how this shakes out. But
Yeah,
I think
hunted.
Florian only benefits from Aurora and Ingwen's. I mean, some people were arguing that Florian's favored into Aurora. I think the matchup turned out to be about 50-50,
Yeah.
where it's like they both have game into each other. But Zen and Enigma, again, were both like very, very, very poor matchups, and there aren't a lot of aggro decks that can like pressure Florian enough before he gets online and just starts taking over the game with like incredibly low rate damage.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's gonna be definitely like at least a meta definer or piece of the triangle, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, Kano?
I think Kano A, like maybe high B, like I think Kano definitely just like suffers from the issue that he's hard to play and a lot of people won't play
Mhm.
him. I do think that the like more aggressive list, if like the list where you're just running 9 floodgates, 9 overflow the Aetherwell, I
Yep.
think that list is very, very powerful if your opponent isn't respecting you with Arcane and with AB and Spellvoid.
Yeah.
Um, I do think that like there aren't a lot of heroes like with Aurora leaving. There aren't a lot of heroes that can like very freely run Spellvoid.
Yeah,
It's
true.
just a question of like how much Kano is in everyone's radar. Like I think it's basically impossible for Kano to be an S tier deck because at least in his current state. Because if everyone just puts a lot of Arcane Barrier and Spellvoid into their deck, he immediately becomes quite a bit worse.
Yeah, it's always that Kano circle, right? No
Mhm.
disrespect Kano, Kano wins. Everybody respects Kano, Kano disappears in the circles,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But if you look at the conversion rates, right? So if we take the entire Pro Tour, the entire calling,
Mhm.
CC rounds, right? And then you break down the heroes who made it into the day two and then who made it towards the top, right? If you ignore Aurora and Enigma, which was like 99% of them, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty much Zen, Florian, Kano, and then like a sprinkle of a couple other heroes. So I do think
Yeah,
that these
I
two
think
had
there
the most
were.
game.
Yeah, I think Zen or Kano. There were no Kanos in top 8 of the London calling, but there were two
Yep.
in top 16,
Yep.
and I believe both of them like lost a win in a round or two before. So
Yeah.
there could have been two Kanos in top 8, and then I think there were a couple more in top 32. And I was seeing them just like absolutely destroy like even Auroras that had the shock charmers
Yep.
because if even if they're just on Spellblade 2 and you can connect the wildfire for like 6 or 7 or 8 and they don't have the blue in hand, you usually win that game with the amount of extenders that Kano has access to now.
Yeah, now they're running like multi combos, so they're just gonna fire it off a couple times. Like they're just firing off combos. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, getting through some of these like Garbo heroes, you know what I mean? I think Betsy, there's no hope for you. I'm so sorry.
Bro, we just need a hope mastery pack. Like,
Olympia, there's no hope for you. I'm so sorry.
yeah,
I mean, like,
Kasai gets a little bit better, but I think she's still like D, C
yeah,
tier.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I think like Bravos maybe like C, KOC. I
yeah,
think
chaos.
Jarl's probably like B.
Yeah,
Um,
I think Jarl actually gets a lot better. A lot
yeah,
better.
yeah. I think the Jarl Florian matchup is like definitely, if those are decks that like people end up bringing, I think that's a matchup that like could potentially be very relevant. Similar to like how like the Aurora Enigma matchup was like
Yep.
something that we learned a lot of over the course of London. Like whether Florian brings Dread Scythe over Reaping Blade or whatever to combat Breaking Up the Grasp, or I've seen some Jarls playing Arcanite Skullcap
Yep.
to be able to AB3 channel
Yep.
Millennium Tree
Yep.
to not take too much damage. I think Jarl also just like does something that's pretty fundamentally powerful in slow metas, whereas
Yeah.
like you're destroy equipment that other classes like very much depend on. Like
Yep.
for example, like Jarl Kano, you can potentially blow up their Striders or their Ragamuffins hat while like
Mhm.
activating Heart of Ice so that they can't just like YOLO combo you
Yep.
whenever they want.
Yeah,
Um,
he also has CYB, like he has fatigue package. I mean, like I
yeah,
think against mages, he's pretty solid. I mean, I don't know. Florian is probably going to be one of those like absolute monstrous slogs, and I feel like Florian might be able to actually do it. But we'll
yeah.
see. You know, we'll see.
Mhm.
Uh,
I think Fang is another like high B, low A tier hero where it's like you definitely, if the game goes long, Fang grinds out those games very well. Additionally, I think your Kano matchup is absolutely horrendous, but looking at a
yeah,
lot of these other top decks, I think New is a little bit unfavored as well because they can potentially pressure you off of fealty if you like depending on your hands.
hmm,
Um, which if you have to lose your progress, it's pretty bad. But into like a lot of these other heroes, like Burns is a very good matchup. Florian's a very good matchup. I think a lot of these other like slower heroes that are going to come out of the woodworks post Enigma, Aurora, Zenalel. Like Fang plays on those decks pretty well. Like if Guardians are coming back into the meta, I think Fang is absolutely great in the Guardians. You have plenty of
interesting. I would
yeah,
not have actually guessed that, but I'm not a Fang player.
yeah. I mean, if basically it's like all you have to do is get to 3 fealty and then not die, and then every turn you're effectively sending like 16 plus damage, and you're also a lot of that you're able to use defensively, right? You have
Yeah.
dynamos basically gaining you an extra life every turn. The other thing is that into Fang, sometimes your opponent will struggle to get 3 block value out of all of their blocking cards
Yep.
because you'll attack for 1 and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to put a 3 block in front of this. You play your Tooth of the Dragon or your Pledge Fealty, or you can one mode. What's the card called? It has 3 modes. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
remember.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm forgetting as well, actually, but
You have a lot of ways to punish and not allow your opponent to get full block value out of their cards, and you're just able to grind over the course of the game. You're able to get incremental advantages and just grind your opponents out.
yeah,
Yeah, so I think New is the only other hero. I think New is arguably also A, but I think New is like the only other hero I would potentially put in S tier, where it's like if you're going to put 2, I think it's Florian and New,
okay,
because New is the last of that MSD triangle. You still get
yeah,
access to
yeah,
like you get levels of enlightenment. You have all of these very above rate cards, and you also a lot of the power of New that I think a lot of people underrate is like your opponent's deck just fundamentally gets worse because they have to board out some blues that you might potentially
yeah,
play against them. And like that, I think, like for example, into Florian, there will just be games where you like banish 2 Autumn's Touches or you like Sacred Art them or whatever, and suddenly you're dealing 20 damage in 1 turn off of like 3 blues or 4 blues,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
pretty strong, pretty strong.
It is really annoying that this hero exists, and like the fundamental thing that this hero does to the meta is make you play blues that you don't want
Oh
to
man,
play.
yeah,
Yeah, like I really don't like that part about New. I mean, like Dig Up Dinner, it's the dumbest brute card of all time. It's actually sick, but like for her, it's unlimited life and unlimited CNCs.
yeah. You just put every single CNC and
Yeah,
weakest link or whatever
yeah,
whatever sixes they're playing their deck back into their deck,
yeah. And it's
and just gain it.
perpetual unlimited health and CNC. Like, yeah. Just dumb. Okay, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Those two S tiers. What do you think about Prism
Yeah, I
Post?
think Prism. I think Prism is probably like low A. I think she definitely can't. It's tough, right? Because as the meta, as some of these like MST and Aurora leave,
Mhm.
the decks that are left are able to tech into each other a lot better, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, it's you're able to run more defense reactions in your list. Like as I was saying before, you're able to run more defense reactions in your list because you don't need to worry about being able to cut all of them into Enigma. And
Yeah.
so if you're playing like new, like for example, I've been kind of labbing out what I think a new list would look like post Zen and Enigma leaving. And you're able to run 12 defense reactions if you want to, and in addition, you're also able to run some weakest links. And
Mm,
so I think the difference between the matchup, if you're forced to run all your chi, you're only running the 3 CNCs, you only have 2 armor, etc. And the matchup when you're able to run, between 5 and 6 poppers, having lots of defense reactions, able to like board out some of your chi so that you have less no blocking cards, kind of swings the matchup. And so I think a lot of what the meta is going to look like is you're going to be able to like pick your battles depending on what you think the expected meta is going to be. And
yep.
so knowing what the meta is going to benefit you a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of agree. It is nicer. Like when it's way more targetable, a lot of odd heroes get better.
Mhm.
Slippy. I think Slippy's a pretty good deck.
I think Slippy's pretty good. I think he's kind of that level 2 deck where it's like you struggle into Florian and New, and you're
Yeah.
pretty good into all of the like tier 2 decks.
Yeah.
Um, like you struggle into New for like the main reason of just you get your hero power and they also get your hero power, which is not great. I do actually think the way that some news are built right now, they have access. They're less proactive because they're not forced to be anymore because Enigma is no longer in the meta, and
Yep.
so they're not able to generate as much value. I do still think though that New can often just fatigue Slippy because of
Yeah.
the power of like Master Recurring Nightmares, Persuasive Prognosis, Just Nick, Bonds of Agony, etc.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's all more often able to hit with those cards than Slippy is because she has more like 2 attack reactions with like
Yeah.
random fragments
Tricks.
and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Azuri.
I think like BC. I think she's probably like top high C. It's just like kind of tough because I think she's like the 4th assassin that I would play, and like
Yeah.
she's automatically not that bad because she has Codex of Frailty.
Yep.
But it's tough to find a reason to play her when you could just play any of the other assassins.
Yeah. 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 Totally.
Yeah, I think
Victor.
Victor actually comes up. Yeah, I think he's like kind of similar to Jarl, where it's like you I think the new matchup is more playable than a lot of people give it credit for. There is a
Yeah.
decent amount of the time where if you just resolve 3 visit the Goldman Estates, you can often just like punch new in the mouth, like before they're able to like set up the like 6 blues in your banish and go like 6 6 6,
Yeah.
like from your banish in one turn.
Yeah.
And also just like if you're in a meta without Enigma, fundamentally that's going to be better for Victor because you lose that like. I think that matchup like also was like a matchup for Victor that was like not as unplayable as some people are making it
Yeah.
out to be, but it's you don't play Victor and you sit down for your N1 opponent and they say I'm playing Enigma and you're like wow I'm so happy. You're like
Yeah.
okay
Yeah. Yeah.
we're gonna have to scrap for this one.
Yeah. It's gonna be brutal. Reinar. I think Reinar is actually the best of the three brutes right now. As long as
Yeah,
new exists, he's the best.
yeah. I think
Uh,
I could
I,
even see like bottom of B. Um,
I could see kind of,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean we're coping here, right?
Yeah, there's some cope there, dude. I mean, honestly, I could see. I mean, Florian, decent, right?
Yeah.
New, if you're on
Mm,
aggro list, not good. If you're on turtle list, medium at best.
it can be good. It's
Actually
tough, right?
positive, yeah.
Because yeah, it's
And
tough because it's those games are so long that it's like you don't even remember who wins at the end of them. Or
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
Like it's kind of trash because like mid range Reinar absolutely claps everybody. I think here, but then loses to every aggro deck ever. But then
yeah, I
it's like
mean
they're
if
reversed,
Sen
right?
and Aurora are out though, like maybe it
Yeah,
might be time
I,
for Tank Reiner again.
I'm thinking about it. I've been brewing.
Mhm.
Acilio.
Cilio, I think your floor matchup's pretty good. Your Zen match or not Zen, your new matchup's pretty bad, I think. But you're like pretty good into all of these more defensive decks. I would
Yeah,
say like probably top of B. Um,
yeah, that makes sense to me.
I think like he can just blow people up. Again, I think you have kind of the Verdance problem of like this deck has like 50 cards that I want to play, and the rest are like I'm just gonna
Yeah.
Acilio them away. And like some against
Yeah.
you don't drag on the flash, and then your deck doesn't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Riptide, I think like C, maybe like low, probably more like C. Mario, I actually think Mario's pretty good. I put him like high B. Thor's one of my locals. Thor has just been like crushing it on Mario. He didn't have a great day today, but I think he top aided 3 or 4 RTNs last season and was top 4 of the PQ that we had yesterday.
Yeah. Mario,
Been,
we saw some slog it out at Pro Tour too, right?
yeah, there was one top 16 of the Pro
Yeah.
Tour, and there was also one top 16 of the calling as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some juice there. It's just, yeah, I think it's just hard. I think he's more, they're more complex than the other assassins,
Yeah, definitely very hard to play.
and there's some variance there too. Max is just got a new set,
Yeah.
and I don't know how much it's
Okay,
going to
I
help
have
him.
played against the Max armory deck, and like the deck is really cool. Like you're doing all these really cool things, but
Yeah,
I don't actually know how you ever beat Florian or New. Like I'm pretty sure they both just fatigue you, and
yeah,
I'm like I think you can be a good deck and have a bad matchup into the top 2 decks, but it has to be like, oh, I'm just absolutely destroying all these other decks, and I
yeah.
don't think Max quite does that either. I think he's really cool. And
I
maybe
do
he
too.
hopefully gets some new stuff with high C's, but I
Yeah,
doubt it because it
there's
looks like they're kind of moving away from what he's doing. But
well, actually, I feel like it's moved more towards the what he's doing, right? Because it's all cranking, so he might get some cards.
true, that actually is a good point. What I was thinking of is like you can only activate his like hyperdrivers trigger off boosting, and you can only activate his ability if you've
Yeah, yeah,
boosted.
yeah. You're
And
right.
so
You're
if
right.
they're not printing new boost cards, but
True.
I actually that's a good point that if they're adding more crank cards, that could benefit him as well, like make Banksy more playable, etc.
Yeah, like he might be this like weapon bopper, you know? I don't know.
Mhm.
New or Levia, unfortunately, I think it does not exist as long as
Bro,
new
don't tell
exists.
Ethan. Yeah, New's. Well, actually, I don't know. I think New is not horrendous. I think the
I think it's
trouble.
wild.
I I have it on good authority. Like the
Mhm.
matchup is like they do the thing. Like okay, so you have to play in a very specific way, and it definitely can go wrong for you. But if you are able to sideboard in a specific way, they you're able to like
Still.
be more proactive. Yeah, I mean
I agree.
it's like any it's basically like any fatigue matchup where it's like you have to be able to like howl early, but you have Call to the Grave, you have more ways to do that than previously did.
Yeah, you're
It's
right.
just
You're
like
right.
all of those matchups where your opponent is making you kill them. As Leviat, they're just going to be percentage of the games that you lose, and in addition, it's like all of those games kind of like weigh on you over the course of like a long tournament, right? Um,
Yeah.
and you just have like the inherent brute variance that's like always the
Yeah.
case, but it's not necessarily even like, oh, I have all these matchups where I'm just like inherently very favored into because there's just so many decks right now. They're going to be like, I'm going to make you kill me.
Yeah, I'm truly actually like the brutes are probably all about the same, to be honest. I mean, like actually you're right. I think like new isn't that bad. I think it's a really annoying matchup.
Yeah,
Aurora is a big problem for Levia, but Aurora is
it's
going
Zen
away.
as well, right? Because
Yeah,
like Levi's
Zen.
like, I want to slow down the game, and Zen's like, oh, okay, I have these 2 Chi on the bottom of my deck. I'm gonna transcend a second time, and now I just like start randomly redrawing into these Chi and just like drawing free.
Yeah, she
Like
actually might get better now, but like looking at this, I don't know.
these top decks, it's like, yeah, I mean, you have a good Prism matchup. Um, I would assume Fang could grind you up, but I'm not 100% sure. And then like Kano is sketchy, and Verdance is like also sketchy because it's like another matchup
Yeah,
where they attack. Like Brutes just don't like Arcane, and
we
there's a
don't.
lot of
Yeah, there's a
Arcane
lot of
right now.
arcane up here. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunate. I think they're all kind of like C, maybe B. You know, I don't know. I think that
Mhm.
might be my cope. But
Yeah,
Ira, probably just a safe mid hero. I don't know.
yeah,
Like,
I think Ira's fine. Like she does some powerful things, and if you're, I think what Ira does is it's like if your opponent, she also got new cards from
she's
Hunted.
about to get a whole new armory set, and that's what
Oh
might
yeah,
push her into this tier.
mhm.
But right now,
Yeah,
it's she's like mid.
yeah, I think like every time you beat Ira, if your opponent is like playing defensively, they kind of do the thing where it's like they make you kill them, where it's like you have to
Yeah.
do something powerful to like push through their. They're just gonna do 15 value every turn, unless they
Yeah.
draw like all reds, which does happen a decent amount for Ira. But if she's very consistently able to it feels like you're playing a very fair game of Flesh and Blood, but it's ever so slightly tilted in Ira's favor. And so,
Yeah.
in order to beat Ira, you have to do something a little bit unfair yourself.
Yeah.
Whether that like as new, it's like, oh, I'm gonna have this like crazy pop off turn where I end with like a Codex CNC or whatever, and like strip all your cards and then like try and pull tempo from there. Or as Verdance, it's like I'm gonna play very defensively and like play on a different axis by like setting up this combo.
Yeah.
Or like Prism, it's like Soraya, like big Soraya turns that like a lot of damage at you and not allow you to like play this mid range game, etc.
Yeah. What do you think? Katsu?
Katsu probably D. Fi probably. I actually think Fi's a little bit. He's like probably like mid C. Um,
So Ira's the
D.
best, probably, or do you think Ira's below Fi?
I think Ira's better than Fi.
Yeah.
Fi
Yeah.
is just like I've been playing Fi like Armories, and it's the deck is really fun, and you can sometimes do like pretty powerful things, but the issue is that you will just if you're playing Fi because he's consistent, but you will still just draw hands where it's like I draw 4 cards and none of them are a starter, and my 4 card
Yeah.
hand presents like 10 damage. Just like
Yeah.
it's fine. But you really like there are other aggro decks that I think are more consistent. I think
Okay.
Dio probably gets a little bit worse from these heroes outline. I think she's still like B tier, but I think she had a pretty positive Aurora matchup. And then like
Yeah.
Zen and Enigma, I think your Enigma matchup was pretty bad, but your Zen matchup I think was actually pretty good if you were running no time zone.
Yep.
Because you like turbo through your deck really quickly. If you ever see a spark, you just spark from null time zone, and the Zen basically like is just in the waiting room until null time zone like leaves the arena. Um, and then like you're fundamentally pretty good into aggressive decks, but I think there are a lot of decks that are not trying to be as aggressive now that these heroes are leaving.
Yep. Dory. I think Dory's sleeper, but
Yeah, I
Florian
think
is
she's got
just
because the thing is, yeah, Florian is like still because it's like yeah, Enigma leaves, which is like one of your hard matchups, but Florian is just as hard, and you don't have the bailout of like you jagged edge them and get like 15 value off of 1 card.
yeah, and it's also like if the Guardians actually do get better, she gets a little worse. So it's like Florian and the Guardians would be the only reason, but like into everybody else, I kind of think she's decent.
Yeah,
I
maybe
would,
like high C.
yeah, something like that. I don't know. Somewhere there.
Yeah.
She keeps popping up in tournaments though. Like she was also one of those heroes that was in the day 2 list. Like kind of weird, but a different meta though because she preyed on Aurora, right?
Yeah.
Dash honestly could not exist and I wouldn't notice.
Yeah, like she could LL. Like she hasn't. I don't know if she's gotten a single point this year. Like and she
Yeah.
might still not this purpose. Like the
uh,
deck is fine, but it's like you've only lost High Octane, and all these other decks have
here's
your same power and don't like. Just go.
here's an interesting question though. Full
Ooh,
turtle dash.
Turtle Dash with New and Florian.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
so I don't
Yeah.
know. I actually think that's kind of so. I think it's probably pretty good into Florian. I
I think
think
so,
you
for
do
sure.
struggle into New. I remember. I think it was calling Manila. It was around. It was a little less than a year ago. It was the middle of Zen meta, and the finals was like a full slab dash versus a New. And I
Yep.
think if you give New a long enough game, they will be able to set up these hands where it's like swing a Mistblade, like pitch into mask, like rip a card from your hand, play levels with for like 2 or 3 modes, and then you just
Yep.
like you're able to have these incredibly powerful turns off of just blues, which is like kind of what Dash like the you want your opponent to not have powerful hands when they have blues because
Yeah.
like that's what you do, right? You
Yeah.
spent your whole game setting this up, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna do like a 3 card 15 off of like 3 blues, but
Yep.
like New is able to do that while disrupting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think you're probably pretty good in the Florian though,
I think
and
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like Verdance also, I guess it's like, can you set up the back? Like, you can probably set up the backs before they combo you.
Yeah, you could probably fatigue
You're good
the
into the Guardians as
Slipey.
well, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know
yep.
how Victor ever beats Slapdash.
Yep. Jarl probably as well. Ira probably as well.
Yeah, because it's
Dash.
like, Jarl's like, oh, I'm gonna blow up your equipment, and Slapdash is like, who cares?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it would be like an interesting choice. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
gonna
I
be.
don't think anyone's playing it, but
Yeah.
it does seem fun.
Azalea.
The Azalea is so weird. I think it's B tier. It's just
Yeah.
like your Florian matchup's pretty bad, and your New matchup is neither of you are having fun, but I think Azalea is having a little bit less fun just because
Yeah.
you like if your opponent is playing a deck that doesn't want to block, you can punish that really hard by just going like I'm gonna CNC or Codex U, and then like stilettos and like Codex play the Luke no a second time. And it's like you're in this day and age, like if you're playing no defense or actions against assassin, I think you're probably gonna have a bad time, no matter how
Yep.
much like card advantage you get for your bow.
Yeah. I agree. Bolton, probably somewhere.
Yeah, he's
I
definitely worse than Dash, I think.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Bolton. Like, what's hurting him right now? He has had a lot of support. He's had a lot of
Yeah,
cards given to him, and yet, like, it's still super rare to see him. I don't know
yeah.
where he's struggling.
He did get hurt. So in Hunted, Kabuto got printed, and so like
Oh yeah. Oh
he literally
yeah.
can't play Sabers anymore. Like before, you could be like, oh, I'm gonna Sabers combo you, I'm gonna do 60 damage, and like maybe you sideboard wrong because like you're not expecting Sabers Bolton.
Yep.
But now with Kabuto, it's like you play against a Fang, and it's like
Oh
you just can't play that deck anymore because I mean it's a small percentage of the meta. You're not gonna play against a warrior every round, but like if you play against a warrior, you're literally 0% to win the game. Like the only
yeah,
way you win
that's
is if your opponent
nuts.
like misplays.
I didn't even think about that. Okay. Syndra, we learned how to block her.
Yeah, I think she's like B though. I think she's
Yeah.
like probably better than she might still be better than like Ira. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think she's in that kind of. I do think though Syndra, if you're just like trying to be defensive and not disrupting her, she is actually pretty good.
Yep.
Like I remember, it was I think it was a game of Calling Memphis. It was like Syndra versus a new, and like if you're not being disrupted as the Syndra player, you will just like leak damage over the course of the game because you're just gonna flick knives them every turn and like they're gonna get chipped down. And
Yeah.
like if Florian's like discarding shelters and room like incantation or what's it called haunting renditions every turn, like they're not going to be able to block out all the rest of your breakpoints. I think
Yep.
really what you struggle into is disruption. Like I think a good new is like a pretty tough matchup, and
Yep.
like Prism for example is a pretty tough matchup.
Yep.
You're like probably good into Kano is basically just like do they see wildfire.
Yep.
But like you present a fast enough block, like if you're drawing 5 cards every turn off of mask, you will kill them in like 2.5 turns.
Yeah, yeah. Syndra's hero text is like I have 5 intellect most of the time, unless you give me cards, right? Like,
Yeah, it's like if you don't block with 2 cards, I'm going to draw a free card this turn for the most
yeah,
part. And sometimes if you have like ancestral empowerment or whatever, there will be games where it's like block second card,
yeah,
ancestral empowerment, you just do that 2 turns in a row, and then your opponent's taking like 20 damage or whatever.
yeah. And this is like the last spicy one. I think Vincent's actually good, but what's your thoughts on it?
I think it's good. So I think it's just that like Florian and New are both like very skill intensive matchups. I think we are kind of entering a little bit of a specialist meta where it's
Yeah,
like because if you're a really good Vincent and you can navigate those matchups really well, you're gonna perform well. It's just like if you are going to your ProQuest and you're like, I was just an Aurora player or whatever, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, you should pick up Vincent because you're gonna like not understand how to play. Like I barely understand how to play the deck, and I've played like a decent amount of it.
yeah.
Um,
There's so
and
many real rules, interactions, and like turn
yeah,
sequencing. Yeah,
it's a hard deck to play, but I definitely think it's pretty strong.
yeah.
Um,
So I mean, that's it. So looking at this list, right? I think it's super clear. These two are S tier. Truly, right? Even if she's like here, I still think not so.
yeah,
How do you feel about the rest of this?
yeah, I think it's pretty. I think like realistically, it's kind of tough because there's just so many heroes in the like BCD range that it's like
Yeah,
you could definitely argue like I think or you could argue like oh I think Dory's better or oh I think like
yeah, yeah,
Reinor's better than it is or whatever, but it's past the top like 8 or so
yep,
like representation at like these even at like your ProQuest level is gonna I mean ProQuest at the ProQuest level it's often pretty varied, but I
yeah.
think your representation is gonna drop pretty quickly.
Who is the eighth hero? If we were to put the top 8 in A tier, who would you put up in this A tier?
You mean like if I had to have like the 8th hero?
Yeah, like who's the 8th hero in this top? Because we have 7
Mm,
up here in the A and S
yeah,
tier.
that's a tough one. I think it's probably a guardian. Like it's probably like
Ooh,
Jarl. Um,
ooh,
I think that's
spicy.
maybe a little bit controversial, but it's like Jarl like because Enigma's gone. I think the way that you have to build Jarl now is you have to be like, okay, do I want to sack the prison matchup or do I want to sack the new matchup?
Mhm.
But like if you're not playing against if you don't have a lot of prism in your meta, it's like you're good enough Fang. You can potentially like shut down like I've watched a lot of Verdant's Jarl games, and once they have an equipment broken, it's not even like, oh, I'm going to break an equipment that stops your combo. It's just by the time you get to the point where you want to combo, I'm going to disrupt you one or more cards for like 8 turns in a
Yeah.
row, and you're just never going to get your 5 card hand that you need to combo off with.
Yeah.
And then like I think if your Florian opponents aren't like consistently presenting Dread Sight, I think that matchup's pretty good for you as well as just like CYB becomes way like I think Jarl into new like CYB Jarl is like actually probably a favorite matchup, assuming you like understand the game plan of like I
Yeah.
just need to break mask ASAP and then I can just like fatigue you with sledge or whatever.
Yep.
Because like once they lose mask, if none of their blues do anything, they have all this chi that just like does nothing in their deck, and you're just chipping them down. You're sending 6 of them every turn, and like never like getting hit by any of their disruption. You can
I
pull up
like it.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking Jarl would be like a dark horse pick for me. Like if I think a Shaker CYB Jarl explicitly would be like one of those weird kind of triangle decks where it's like you have to be prepared to see this like just
Mhm.
ice wall, otherwise your tournament could be over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually quite like this list. I mean, I think I agree. Like this whole C tier could honestly be mixed up here and down here. C and B are practically the same. I think D is very clear. You know,
Mhm. Yeah.
sorry D tier, but like C and B, you could honestly merge this together and just call it mid.
Yeah.
Um, and it'd be the same, right? Any of these heroes in a one trick's hands are going to perform probably up here. You know,
Yeah. Like I think like any, especially at your Brokos level, right? Like if
yeah,
you're more experienced on your deck than the other people in the room, like
yep.
you can get pretty far with matchup knowledge, especially in a meta that's not nearly as solved.
Yep. All right, let's dive into the Zen list. All right, so we got Jude's list in front of us. It is beautiful. This is the one that he's been absolutely devastating the entire PNW's ProQuest season with and RTN seasons. But at a high level, if you want to run us through your decision making process for this list, I don't know how you want to take it away.
Yeah. First of all, I think the biggest thing that I want to say with my list is I feel like my goal with the deck is I want to make every matchup. I want to be able to tailor my deck to each matchup as well as possible, right?
Mhm.
And so to that end, I have this like meme 54, but even like within this 54, there are a bunch of cards that I cut, and then a lot of the time, like if I'm playing into Aurora, for example, I'll cut as many 2 blocks as I can for my deck and try and run, wax on wax off package, more defense reactions, etc. If I'm
Yep.
playing into Enigma, I'm trying to do the exact opposite, right? I'm trying to cut as many defense reactions as I can and try and be as proactive as I can so that when they play down their Mirror Guy or do their Sacred Art turn or have like a Spectral Manifestations or Restless Coalescence turn, I'm
Yep.
able to push back and pressure it. Um, I think other than that, the main points of like spice, maybe cards that other people don't include in Zen, is primarily in my blues. A lot of the reds for Zen are pretty mapped out at this
Just
point. Right?
saw ya, Tiger.
You're gonna run
Chase
Chase. You're
tail.
gonna run
Yeah.
Aspect.
Yeah.
The generics are always good in any deck that has free access to action points, which this deck definitely does.
Yep.
Yeah. So for blues that I run that a lot of people don't run, it's I run a lot more 3-ofs than other people do. I think there's a lot of options in what blues you can run in Zen.
Mhm.
I think 3 Pouncing Key is a big one. I think Pouncing Key is probably a card that's worth maxing out on because it's if you have Pouncing Pause in a Pouncing Pause matchup, you're always able to transcend off of it, assuming you have Pouncing Pause up. It'll often come in for 3 because of Tiger Stripe Shuko. If you go Crouching Tiger into Shuko, it's going to be your second attack action for the turn, so it's going to get +1 it can't be prevented, which the can't be prevented part doesn't often come out, but into decks like Enigma,
Yeah.
Prism, even like Earth Heroes, right, with like Well Grounded or Seeds of Tomorrow, all those cards can definitely come up pretty often.
Yep.
Other than that, Tiger Form Incantation is another one that looks kind of innocuous, but is actually pretty strong. So what Tiger Form Incantation lets you do is if you have Tiger Form Incantation, a blue, and any Transcend card, it gives you an automatic 3-card 12 with Chase the Tail
Yeah.
because you can go Tiger Form, you can swing your Kakara, you can Transcend, which will get you a third resource, so that you can then activate Zen, go Tiger, Chase the Tail Tiger, and come in for a total of 2+1+4+4. No, 2+2+4+4 for a total
Jeez.
of 12,
Just solid
which is
math.
yeah, it's very solid math, especially considering it's on 3 blues.
Yeah, it's MST Hero Special, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite as good as like levels, which
Yeah,
levels often breaks like 3 card 16, 3 card 19, etc. But yeah, other than that, Winds of Eternity, I'm running two of these in my list. I think that a lot of people run Punter Zero. It wasn't even necessarily that I'm like, Winds of Eternity is just such an amazing card. I think it's
yeah,
more so it's on rate, which is not something you necessarily see from a lot of combo cards. A lot of the time, like if you look at One Wing Gust Wave when it's turned on is a great card, but One Wing Gust Wave when it's not turned on is a point below rate. And
yep,
so what really pulled Winds of Eternity for me is that it's a card that's on rate when it isn't turned on, and it's incredibly above rate. It's often a 0 for 5 when you are able to combo with it.
yep,
As long as we have 6 cards in our deck that combo with it, even if Red Hunter Winds isn't a card that we're often playing.
yeah.
Um,
Huh.
Other than that, I think the other thing is like Winds of Eternity usually isn't a transcend starter, but it can be off of something like Pathful Traveled. In addition, it being a combo card is pretty valuable because it helps us with hitting off of Ancestral Harmony, and it's also a combo card that blocks for +2 with Flick.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, like it's you talked about it earlier in the videos. Like you just want consistency. You want to be able to deal with any scenario given to you. You want to be able to block. You want to be able to do this. And like a blue that comes in for 12 is exactly that, right? Like it's just
Yeah,
it's
I,
consistency.
I think another thing to note about all these blues is they all block for 3. And so
Yes.
what I was trying to do with when building this version of the deck is I want to minimize the number of 2 blocks in my deck. And so most of the games that Zen loses are games where you draw a lot of poor blocking cards and you don't draw any transcend cards. Because oftentimes, if you're transcending every turn, it doesn't really matter what your opponent's doing. Between Traverse, Kasaya, and Shuko, and
Yep.
Kakara, you're going to be outvaluing your opponent anyway. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to basically make the games where you don't draw transcend as stable as possible, right? You want to
Yes.
be able to defend, play 2 card 7s, swing Kakara, play Mauling Key, send Command
Yep.
and Conquer, send E-Strike, etc. Um, and you just want to try and be as defensive as possible. And so to that end, the only 2 blocks that I'm running in my entire main deck is 100 Winds Blue and Wax Off. And I was honestly considering not even running Wax Off. Wax Off is really interesting because it kind of goes against the philosophy of what you want to be doing in this deck because it's a very high variance card. It either
Yeah.
blocks for 2 and does nothing else, or it makes a Zen state, which is often worth 6+ points of value. And
Yep.
so basically the conclusion that I came to in the Aurora matchup is they're so consistent that just blocking when you don't transcend often isn't good enough. And so
Mm.
what a lot of the time that you have to do into Aurora is you have to take these pivot turns, and a lot of the time, because they block poorly, Zen State is very, very powerful against Aurora, because usually what you want to do if your opponent has a Zen State is you want to block because attacking is inefficient. But if you're playing or if you are playing as Aurora and you draw a hand that's like Flittering Charge, Lightning Press, Electrostatic Discharge, Snatch or whatever, your entire hand blocks for a total of 4. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
when Zen State can really punish that. And so other than that, I don't think there's too crazy in the main deck. I think the sideboard is also there are some interesting cards in the sideboard. I think the it isn't necessarily what cards that I'm running, but the distributions. I think that I found kind of pretty deep into me playing a lot of Zen is that a lot of these effects I don't need the full 3 of. I just need to run 2. And so that leaves the sideboard space open for me to be running more different effects.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, for example, for the longest time, I was running 300 Winds, 3 Growl. Before that, at like Calling Portland, I was running 300 Winds, 3 Spinning Wheel Kick. But I've really felt that into Enigma, having more go again is good, but because they run so many disruptive attacks like Weakest Link, Command and Conquer, Phantasmaclasm, etc.,
Yep.
you don't actually want to be diluting your deck with that many 3 blocks because a good percentage of the time when you're mid-ranging, they're going to send a Weakest Link at you, and you need to be able to block 6. And
Yep.
oftentimes you'll be able to like cover it up with like 3 block, a 2 block, and Pouncing Paws. But
Yep.
sometimes you don't have Pouncing Paws, and so if you have too many 2 blocks in your deck, sometimes your opponent will be sending damage at you, and you'll just look at your hand and you'll say, I have 2 Chi and a 3 block and a 2 block. I'm going to have to commit Kasaya or
Mhm.
Shuko or like, additional armor that you don't otherwise want to be blocking with. And so that's kind of the idea with Growl. With Tiger Reflex is primarily a way to offset not having enough Tiger generation in matchups where you're running Tide Flippers over Pouncing Paws.
Interesting.
So, like what I was finding is into Aurora, you have Tiger Form Incantation, but outside of Tiger Form Incantation and Sacred Art, unless you exactly have your Aspect of Tiger Bodies and your Chase the Tails lineup every single time, which often will not happen, you'll
Yep.
struggle to fire off 2 or 3 Chase the Tails over the course of the game. And Chase the Tail is one of the best cards in your deck by far. And so anything that you can use to maximize that card is very strong. Another thing that I like about Tiger Eye Reflex is it's very strong into the assassins, because what they'll do is they'll go Command and Conquer you, or they'll Codex Command and Conquer you, or any of these things. And so Tiger Eye Reflex does something that almost no other card in Fab does, which is it, other than like Sigil, but like Sigil doesn't really work in Zen, although I wish it did. I love Sigil. Well.
I do love Sigil.
Honestly,
too.
my favorite card. But Tiger Reflex effectively converts for 3 and then makes a Tiger. That's literally what it does. But oftentimes, a Tiger in your Banish Zone on a turn where you're doing the thing, which, as in like activating Zen, is usually worth between 1 and 3 value. And so when you think about Tiger Reflex in that light, a card that is worth a 1 card 6, which is like it's ceiling for sure. But even when you're not at its ceiling and it's a 1 card 3, that's still pretty serviceable, right? That's great. And in Zen, where your goal is to extend the game and try and get as much Chi in your deck as possible, a card that blocks for 3 is perfectly fine. Especially a card that blocks for 3 from your arsenal. Which,
pretty good. It is pretty good. The Ninja get to block with their block card from their arsenal. You know what I mean?
It's pretty sick. I wish they printed more ambush cards that were not just Tiger Reflex. Other than that,
me too.
I think it's pretty standard. I think the distribution of 3 wax on red, 2 wax on yellow is something that's pretty common at this point. I think 6 is too many and 4 is a little bit too few, where you sometimes will struggle to line up wax on, wax off. The 3 Cosmics, I know a lot of people just play 2. I think it's pretty reasonable to just play 2, but if you run 3 Cosmics, it basically means that you can never lose to any fatigue deck ever.
I learned that the hard way.
I played against a Dory of the Calling, and I think it was 4-0, 5-0, something like that. And my opponent, I'm assuming they're on Dawnblade, right? And I'm a little bit panicking because this list is not traditionally, you wouldn't consider it to be good into Dory because you only have like 3 to 5 D reacts, depending on what you count as a defense reaction between Tiger Reflex and Flick Flack. You don't have any Sink Belows, you don't have any Shelter from the Storms, etc. And so I was like, okay, how am I going to shore up this matchup? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to maximize how many 3 blocks I have in my deck. And so I cut my 100 wins and I put in my Cosmic Awakenings because I was like, okay, this is going to be good so that I can, block out their increments of 3. Like I don't want to be overblocking by 2 when they're like threatening a counter or whatever. And so I board in the Cosmics, and I'm like, okay, I'm presenting 60 cards. How many cards are you presenting? And they say, I'm presenting 72 cards, and they flip up Decimator Great Axe. And if I had not boarded in those Cosmics, I lose that game 100 out of 100 times. And because I boarded in those Cosmics, I fatigued them. I presented 60, and they presented 72, and I fatigued them.
Yeah, you beat my fatigue Riptide because you just Cosmic me 3 times.
Yeah. The best part is when they you're playing against Codex. And they Codex you, and you're like block for 4 with armor, draw a Chi, hit you for 19.
Yeah, dude. I think I also did that, right? Like I think I Codex, dude. You're like, yeah, sick. Cosmic Awakening for 20. And I was like,
I had like 2 more in my deck still, so I had like 80 more damage of Cosmics.
I was like, okay, good game, buddy. I'm not prepared for Cosmic Awakening Zen, clearly. No, I mean, sick list, man. It's such a shame that I pulled you on 2 times in a row now when your hero LLs, but
right before my hero's gone.
Literally the day of.
Yeah, I feel very good about this list though. Like I think I was like looking before my pro quest this weekend, I was like, is there anything I want to change? And I was like going through all the options, and I was like, no. I think this list is like I definitely hesitate to say that it's perfect, but I really like all the ratios. I really like how it plays in all these different matchups. It feels like outside of like Kano, you have game into every deck, and I think like outside of like new, I feel even to favorite into every deck. That definitely requires like very extensive like matchup knowledge and practice into all of these decks. but that's definitely an insane matchup spread, right? If
No,
you
it's
can
nuts.
feel like you're 50% or better into every deck but one out of 30 something like heroes in the
Yeah.
game, that's obviously kind of insane.
It is nuts, and I mean, like you've shown it recently, right, with all of your performance. So next time you're actually on a tear with your next hero, whoever that hero is that you pick, we'll have to pull you in before that hero live in
Before the
Legends,
NLL, yeah.
like in the middle, when you're on your tear in the middle, not the end. All right.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, buddy. It was a pleasure having you on. It's been great to see you kind of just level up your game, and really start winning those like kind of like showing up to those big events out there, dude. Like,
Yeah, it's been great. The last 6 months have been
yeah.
pretty great in terms of Fab for me, and I'm hoping to keep the momentum up for sure.
Will you
Uh,
be what's the next big tournament for you? Nationals?
I'll be at US Nats.
Yeah.
I got my Singapore invite like 3 hours ago, actually, when
Yeah.
I pick you on then. But I don't know if Singapore's in the cards for me, but I'm definitely going to go to US Nats. Maybe another one or two US callings this year.
Sweet.
I'm gonna try to be at the World premiere and then plan to go
Mm,
to Worlds.
that would be sick. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, at least nationals. I'll see you there, buddy.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's nuts, dude. Like you're just killing it. Keep doing it. You're gonna be the next boy wonder, dude. Yeah, can't believe how good this game you've gotten in the last year. Anybody want to shout out before we close out here?
Yeah, actually, I want to shout out my testing team that I
Mhm.
tested with in advance for London. It's been really great. Like up until a couple months ago, I've just been kind of going at my own, just playing a lot of Talishar, etc. Like
Yeah,
it's been going fine for me, but it was really nice, especially for draft
yeah,
for this format, to be able to like practice with other people who are playing in the Pro Tour and are often, just like getting a lot of games and reps in that way.
yeah,
Like where previously it's like I would, for example, like for Pro Tour Amsterdam, I did 20 drafts or whatever, but I wasn't like talking with other people, like what cards do we think are good? How do we want to
yeah,
like approach the format in terms of like should we force like when is it correct to like pivot, etc. Like is this a format where you're able to like wait until you commit? Is this a format where you have to like commit very early, etc.
yeah. Does that team have a name, or is it just like a buddy group?
It's Team ABC.
Team
I've been
ABC.
told it's named that it's Team Always Arsenal Brick Cry.
Okay, that's a good one. That's
Yeah,
a good name. All right, buddy. I thank you so much for having or coming on the
yeah.
channel. I appreciate it so
I'm glad to
much.
be here.
Yeah, man. Next time we'll get you in the middle of your tear. All right. And
Not
when
at
you
the end.
win your
Yeah.
major, when you win your major, we're gonna get you right here. All right, guys. Have a good night. We'll see you soon. Later. Wow. We're good, dude.
Yeah, that was good.